Bring a Trailer podcast.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to roll in and intro you, John, to our audience. You're a man that needs no introduction, and I'm certainly not the most accomplished person to ever intro you, but I'm proud to do it now. So you're a New York Times bestselling author, a platinum-selling rap artist, a 16-time WWE champion, pioneer of social media positivity. You've made an appearance on what's objectively the best box of cereal out there. You're an actor, a loving husband, a philanthropist with over 650 wishes granted for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and you're a former MG owner.
Right on. And the current voice of Honda.
Hey, that's right. Big Honda fans here, two of us.
Right on.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into Hondas.
That's okay.
I'm fascinated with your affinity for British cars because you're lowering.
Yeah, man, we can get into that too. Yep.
Lowering that median age of British car owners just through your own enthusiasm.
I'm not exactly as young as I was yesterday, so don't lower the age too much. I think it's found me at the right time.
Yeah, some of the gentlemen named Otis that float across our desk selling MGAs out there. But cool, yeah, I want to get into all of it. Just first and foremost, Jackpot streaming on Amazon Prime now for our audience. Go check it out.
Look at you, man. This is right on. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, we really appreciate you joining Alex and I. And I've got a little bit of a loose agenda prepared for us. I'd love to get into your history a little bit growing up, what your experiences with cars were like then. I'm fascinated with the mid-career cars that you were around, what some of your coworkers at the WWE were rolling. I know I can't look at a Ram SRT10 across my desk without thinking of Hulk Hogan. So touch on that. And we'll kind of segue into the modern state of the collection and maybe some broader philosophical questions I have for you.
No problem, man. I'll try to listen the best I can and help you where I can. Let's go for it.
Cool. Appreciate it. Well, so early life, you grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, right?
Yep.
And when I think Mass, I generally go, especially in that time period, muscle cars, American cars, Lee Iacocca designed Chryslers. What was the scene like buzzing around when you were a kid growing up in Mass?
That's pretty close to the bullseye. Influential driver's license period. We're talking 93-ish to like 97, 92 to 97. So you have the advent of like the first issue 5-liter Mustangs, or the return of the 5-liter Mustangs. Chevy wasn't really doing much with, the Camaros. The Mustang was kind of the car to have if you were looking new, which means a lot of folks were looking old. You saw a lot of Novas, a lot of Chevelles, a lot of GM stuff. You're kind of there were really not too many Dodge guys in the neighborhood. They were either GM or Ford. We had a few guys who had like big body Mach 1 Mustangs. I remember riding my buddy's 70 Chevelle after school, but I remember riding to school in my friend's Triumph. He had a Triumph Spitfire, would pick me up every day at 6 a.m. And in the winter, it was effing cold.
So the British car thing goes pretty far back then.
You know what? I didn't realize it then, but man, there was something about the car. And when I first was able to get cars, I obviously focused on muscle because, if you had a cool muscle car, you were one of the cool kids. And I guess maybe I was trying to be one of the cool kids, but I gravitated towards all those cars that were unattainable around town when I was growing up. So that was kind of the early stage for me.
And was there a particular car that you felt was unattainable, or you felt like your life in high school would have been complete if you just had a Buick Grand National?
So I thought the coolest car ever made was the now defunct Pontiac GTO Judge.
Nice.
And the 70 Judge. I loved how it was all, what they call it on the window sticker, elastomeric bumper, how it was like all paint coated. And everything, like the spoiler looked just enough. Chevelles didn't have the spoilers. You could get like, I ended up falling down like a GM rabbit hole and had a pretty eclectic collection of pretty rare stuff from the General Motors brand, but all offshoots like a Buick, Oldsmobile, Pontiac. But I thought that GTO was the coolest car ever.
Even taking a step back, I wondered, I heard that Richard Scarry was cited as one of your influences on the
absolutely.
children's books
Cars
that you've written.
Cars and trucks and things that go was like that. That was the way for my mom to keep me not burning down the house.
Okay, cool. That that was also like a formative experience in my own youth, and I can tell for Alex's as well.
I'm raising my hands. My kids too love that stuff.
Yeah, it's still going. I almost wondered if the busiest people ever still had an influence on you based on what's on your plate. Potentially, green eggs and hamstring day.
Possibly, man. I was a big fan of Richard Scarry and Dr. Seuss. Yeah, for sure. But the book I remember most is Cars and Trucks and Things That Go.
So growing up, you were always interested in cars. It wasn't something that came a little bit later in your career.
Man, the bucket of Matchbox cars that I had all beat to all hell, because I thought like the scuffs made them faster. And I had stock 442s, but then like old Dodges with a huge blower motor coming out of the drag wheels. Like I remember specifically the Matchbox cars that I had, and just a whole bucket of them. And we used to just dump them out, divvy them up, and play in the mud. And it wasn't just monster truck stuff. It was like, we had some real slick cars too, 911s, and we had a 308 Ferrari that was like the coveted one, if you could get your hands on that. But like, man, I really loved everything about cars. I just always thought they were so cool.
308 is still a coveted car for Alex over here.
Oh my God, I want a 308 GTB so bad. Have you ever had one, John?
I have not.
Oh, interesting. You might not fit in one. They're kind of weird. I'm sure you've driven the car. Well, I know you've had a couple Lambos. The cars where you kind of, that Italian style where you sit, lean back
sideways.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. It's pretty like it's not made for driving, but it's absolutely made for driving.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So high school, I've heard you talk a lot about how much of an influence rap was on your life. Did it influence your taste in cars at that time as well? I know East Coast is a lot of truck.
No, so oddly enough, like the advent of hip hop music wasn't really, it was braggadocio, but it was like when the West Coast invasion hit, and then like artists like Notorious Big came out, they started rapping about like material objects, and like, I have this, and I have the new Lexus, and I have the new Benz, and like the West Coast had all the lowriders, and they embraced that culture. The early rap that I was listening to didn't much have that. It was just pretty much trash talk, like braggadocio trash talk. Cars might have been mixed in there, but it wasn't like, especially in the mid 90s. And then boy, did it take over in the 2000s. And then it just became a game of like, I have this possession and I'll rhyme it into this lyric and I'll make it sound like this. And I'll talk about the paint jobs of my certain cars. And so I guess all that stuff hit me before then, which is why I think, amazingly enough, I loved the rebellion of the music and like the authority of the music. And had it caught me at a time where it was, I guess, more aspirational, who knows? I might have been less rebellious and more aspirational. But that it really like fueled my rebellion against certainly my parents' form of government at the time.
Interesting, yeah, relatable experience. I wondered, because you're cruising through Harlem in the M3 Big L. I mean, that drops, I guess, probably post high school. And
no, that's right around the time. But like, again, it wasn't. I don't know. No Big L line is a throwaway, but it was so woven into the fabric of it. It wasn't necessary. And by the way, the videos didn't have these cars. I think that was the main thing. Like I remember seeing H to the Izzo the first time I saw a G-Wagon. And like, that was like seeing Dre and Snoop the first time you saw a car hit three wheels. It was like, this is bananas. So the videos also didn't have that sort of influence back then. They were just telling a different story. And then it became, even if the video wasn't about the newest car, they would show something on crazy rims and you would be like, what the F is that? You know, and then it honestly, like vehicles became a vehicle, like a conduit for music videos, and it became like a car culture showcase. You had the East Coast showing off a certain type of car, you had the West Coast showing off a certain type of car, you had the South showing off a certain type of car.
And then you had the Midwest showing off complete lack of cars. Eminem and his humble roots.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah, but certainly he had a different way of telling stories, and nobody's wrong. You know, everybody kind of managed their own ship. But like, yeah, it was really it got to a point. I think the music video became an exposition for wealth and aspiration and all that.
It's so interesting. I'm 41, John, and so I'm like a little bit like I remember like all the all the puff stuff, all the like bad boy stuff that came out in the late 90s. And I loved cars by then. I was 16 in 1999. So seeing an E36 M3, seeing a R129 in Hypnotize. Is that what they're going backwards in Hypnotize? I think that's an R129, right, Zach?
I think so.
Yeah. I loved all that stuff, but I was already into cars. So it's interesting hearing you. I loved hip hop, but it was separate from cars for me. My dad loved German cars. So that's where it came from for me. Sounds like you were mainly American cars. And so like, I didn't put the two and two together till like much later, but for you, Zach's a lot younger than us. They were always paired, right? Like hip hop and cars.
They're closer together. I mean, a lot of my early hip hop memories are bling bling era, which we'll get into in a little bit. I've got some questions for you on that.
Well, again, that's the more you can show your status, the better you are. And man, I mean, it's odd even hearing you guys speak. I always compare cars with WWE. Like cars are a rabbit hole, and you can meet someone who is intelligent, and then you can meet someone who's like passionate, and then you can meet someone who's obsessed. And there's always someone out there who knows more about it than you.
Always.
And I really enjoy always. And I really enjoy cars. It's more than a hobby. I really am passionate about it, but it's like, I would be a good listener at a Cars and Coffee. I know a little bit about everything and be able to sit and kind of identify some stuff and have a pretty eclectic conversation starter. But once you get me past the third sentence, I'd have to be a listener, which I really run parallel to wrestling, because here I am, more than 20 years in the WWE, and I'll sit down with fans at conventions or signings, and they will bring up moments that I don't remember and stuff that I participated in, that I don't have the depth of field. So it's actually great. Like the culture is great because you don't need to ever be behind the wheel of something to be passionate about it. Like I like how it brings people together, and there's always a chance to learn. And wrestling is the same way. WWE is the same way. It brings people together, and fans have taught me about me over the years. So I think it's weird that the relationship and hip hop or music is the same type of conduit where you can enjoy certain things, but someone can have a bigger depth of field and you can learn something about it. I think those are fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly healthy perspective to approach any hobby with. Just that quality of taking the role as a listener. I mean, it's a wonderful foundation for learning and picking up, whether it's a sport or a hobby or a community, which we talk about a lot here at BAT.
Yeah, because we all thought we knew about cars till we worked here, right, Zach?
Oh, yeah. I get a lot of guys every day tell me I don't know a lot about cars. So one of these days I'll learn.
Yeah, that's all right. And that's honestly, I really dig the forum on BAT. When you find a certain car and you look at a car and you're like, wow, that car looks great. Even if, and I often tell, I work with Naples Motorsports, just sold my Ultima Evolution, and the seller, a great guy, and that car is really not in the wheelhouse of what they sell. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, just be active.
Mm-hmm.
The board users want you to be active. And if you don't know, say you don't know, because there's someone on that forum that knows. There's someone on that forum that knows, that's raced the car, that's built one of the cars. They'll tell you, hey, if the guy's looking for a picture of this, put the car in a lift, go under, point it at 45 degrees. This is what they're looking for. The forums are great. And they're also like a great form of policing inactive sellers. When sellers aren't giving you the information you want. I mean, you're making, either way, purchasing a car, if it's not used for daily transportation, is a spend that we don't need to make. And you want to make sure you get the best money, you get the best for your value, and you want to make sure, like, if you're looking at something shiny and new, when it shows up at the house, you want to have that same feeling. And I think the user interface on Bring a Trailer is fantastic for that, because the smartest people of the car get together and talk about it. And if the seller is a good listener, sometimes when they don't know it all, you can still curate a great experience, and the person who the car shows up to or the vehicle shows up to can still be enthusiastic about their purchase.
Wonderfully said, John. And
can we get him on staff?
Yeah.
Let's get him on.
Through that, I'm also learning that
I am retiring next year, so I'm going to need something to do.
Come on in, buddy.
I've now been taught that I'm actually just a good listener too, and you 3 sentences in, I'll just let you run. But the Ultima also did prompt me. I wanted to know what hits harder, that car fully spooled up, 1,000 pounds of boost, or Brock Lesnar.
So, man, there have been moments when I've stood across the ring from Brock Lesnar when I wonder about my health, but those are just my own fears. Brock is, I've often said this, I think he is without a doubt the most gifted performer in WWE history. He is unique. I think he's once in multi-generations. I don't think we'll see another one like Brock Lesnar for another few generations. And he's so gifted that his stuff looks terrifying, but he's the smoothest performer. Randy Orton is another. Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels are like the two smoothest, but all of Brock's stuff looks brutal and is not brutal. So like the anxiety you have when you're staring across the ring from him is simply in your own being of, hey, don't lose your cool and punch this guy in the face because you don't have a chance. Like usually a fight's a coin flip. With him, the odds are not in your favor. When you are in that evolution and you hit the gas, you need to be responsible. Like you just need to be responsible. That car is fun to drive, but because of the no assists, no computers, it is manual. Like, man, you got to be on it and in it. And like, it is a true Le Mans racer. The new curator of that, until they pass it on to the next person, is going to have a whole lot of fun with that car because it's a Le Mans car for the street. And I did subtle, like there was a malfunction on the electric steering. So I just muted it because all the lights would come on. The steering wheel would get hot. So I just unplugged it and muted it. They can plug it back in, troubleshoot if they want. But like I leather wrapped the steel footwells, because as you got into the car, it just looked too tracky and I wanted to make it feel more streetable. So just the little accents like that, just the little details of, hey, you won't see any exposed steel in the car. You'll be welcome to what looks like a comfortable interior, but don't let the smooth taste fool you. You need to 6-point harness that MF. And when you hit the accelerator, it hits you back. Like that car is, if you are not on your game with that thing, like you got to be tuned in.
Well, it's so impressive to hear you approach your cars and your builds with the same level of thought that you seem to approach your life, your social media, your Twitter feed. It's really a just running theme that I really admire about you. And also it's so nice for me to hear you talk about getting in the ring with Brock Lesnar and the anxiety you feel, because that would be me with any physical altercation ever.
Again, that's me feeling anxiety in what I would consider my comfort zone. So like I got my 10,000 hours over there, and boy does he make you question every decision you've ever made professionally when you're in that 20 by 20 box.
I can only imagine.
But he's the best, and I consider him a really good friend too. And I've considered him a friend my whole career, even from our upcomings in OVW in Louisville. So all of those times I've been in the ring with him, the only anxiety that I'm trying to overcome is, stuff that I've put on myself. He's a consummate professional. He has his own way of doing things, but it's always for the good of WWE. And we are lucky to be able to see him. If you're a fan of WWE, you're lucky to be able to see Brock Lesnar.
Can I sneak one more Ultima question in, Zach?
Absolutely.
Very quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Did you drive that car a lot, John? And did you drive it street, track? Where did you use it? It seems like almost like I'm terrified just reading about it and looking at it.
So I never track my cars because I know myself and I would really push them to the limits. I never baby them. I'm not going to keep a car at 1,500 RPM, but I also don't want to spend 8 hours with it at 7,000 RPM.
Sure.
So I want a car that is street friendly, because the thing that I most enjoy is taking my wife out to dinner. And a lot of the reason the Ultima left, I had a lot of eclectic cars. A lot of the reason the Ultima left is my wife didn't feel safe in it. So that's a main concern. I still have a pretty diverse garage, but one of the rules, she's like, enough, stop. I had an RXC Radical that was awesome. Like seeing the RXC and the Ultima side by side, that was a nice lineup.
Did you track the Radical, or did you roll that around?
No, I never.
Wow.
No. Yeah, I put street tires on it. I had the team from Radical come in and take care of the idle because it was set to go out of the pits, so it would often stall in first. And I'm like, guys, can you computerize it so I can help myself out a little bit? Can it run a little bit safer? Put street tires on it, put different rims on it. But it was open weave carbon fiber. The carbon fiber was huge. It looked so badass.
Your wife probably thought you would have been safer on a leader bike than driving that thing around.
She hated it. She absolutely hated it.
I can understand.
It would be like I'm seeing an aircraft that I can drive on the street, and it was beautiful. And she's like, I'm never riding this again. I don't feel safe. I had a Superlight, a Superlight GT, and she hated that too. But I mean, cool built car with the automatic. It had the automatic scissor doors on it. Man, that thing was throwing like 750 horsepower. But that was scary. That car, I could lose that car a little bit. It was fun to drive, but she made some good points, good strong points, and I have had to kind of change my philosophy on what earns a parking space in the garage. So so that's kind of led to the Ultima's demise in the garage.
It makes sense, and I love hearing you talk about that. Every time I've heard your wife come up in conversation, it sounds like you guys just have the kind of relationship everyone should aspire to. It's really endearing hearing you talk about her on the level that you do. And I wondered, is she supportive of cars in general, or is she more tolerant?
So she loves cars as well. And man, she's not afraid to drive as well. I want to respect my boundaries that I have with her, not speak for her, but I will say she loves cars. I will also say that she is the authority of the family. Every year I'm allocated a budget, just like budgeting any other hobby or any other activity where people budget for a vacation. I always miss, but she acts as the police and reminds me that I'm being an idiot. And it's great because she really has curtailed what could be turning something fun into like an obsession that's not fun and counterproductive and making a lot of poor decisions. So she keeps an eye on the numbers. And she also puts down the ground rules of like, hey, if I don't feel safe, it's got to go. And it took her a while to gain the courage for that, but I'm so glad we leaned into those uncomfortable conversations, because I was leaning more towards like, how can I get an F-16 and put a license plate on it?
100%. Yes. Now you're speaking my language. You seem very drawn to those like kind of track special type cars.
So the thing I like about the track stuff is it looks so crazy. All the hypercars, I mean, like the Senna, the P1, all of those cars, even something as old as like the F40 where it's stripped down, you get a rope for a door handle. They're just made to go like hell. Yeah. So when I see something like that and it's got unbelievable engineering and it can be had at a value, that kind of checks a lot of boxes for me. So I don't just love performance either. Like the way I drove the Radical, somebody who tracks a car would look at me disgusted. But I love the funky doors, the open weave carbon fiber. I put like some beautiful bronze wheels on it, and I had it tuned for the street. It looked kind of just like the Ultima, except open weave carbon fiber. And the same thing with the Ultima. Like I made sure the AC was working, the radio works, even though I don't listen to the radio when I'm in the car, but all the stuff was functional. When the steering wheel malfunctioned, I didn't care. I was just like, black it out. It's not of any importance to me. I don't care what my lap time is. I just want a smooth drive. I want to make sure there's cold air blowing in there, because it does get hot in the Florida sun when there's that little dot in the window can't bring in enough cool air. But no, I love curb appeal.
Yeah.
So those cars, like people ask questions about those cars. Like, totally. What is that? And I love that, because someone might not know about cars or be passionate about cars, but they might have that one moment. Like when I described to you in the Jay-Z video, I saw this car and was like, whoa, where that's the car that's like, I want to know more about cars, or cars are cool.
Totally.
It could be that one moment. And I just thought all those unique builds, you just don't see them every day. I think the big exotic builds and the big aspirational brands have become more commonplace. They're making more cars, so you see them more. Before that 308 you're talking about, you'd never see one. And if you did, it was like, did you know that so-and-so has a 308? I think there's one in West Newbury, Massachusetts. We'd be like, I think there's one in Danvers.
Yeah. I remember growing up, it was a conversation at dinner. My mom would say, I saw a car today.
Yeah, totally.
It was like a full topic of conversation in the household. And now we're a little desensitized. I mean, the upside of that is it's more democratized. More people can have great, interesting cars and enjoy them and talk about them together. But I totally get what you mean of having something that feels truly unique and special and humble with AC and a simple 750 horsepower.
Yeah, you just, just get milk and groceries in. I think it was a pretty short-lived phase. And the cool thing about that is it didn't kick me out of the culture or the hobby. It just made me ask myself some questions. Like, why do you keep gravitating towards these cars? And instead of, because your wife feels unsafe. So first of all, what's more important? She is. All right, they're gone. But let's answer some questions of why. My whys are: love the cool doors, love the curb appeal, love the feeling I get when I step on the gas. I love the fact that I have to drive the car. I like that it kind of fights with you a little bit. Even the Radical, it's a 3-pedal car. Even though it's a paddle shift, it's a fun car to drive. But also what I didn't like about the cars is they were too aggressive. They were too track. So even though something looked nice, and a lot of these cars are, hand assembled, it's kind of, you buy a kit, you get a kit. So I would then be like, all right, let's shift my focus to mass production stuff that's a little eclectic, that might be a little special, that you might not see every day. And where can I land there? And when my most precious cargo, my passenger has a smile on her face, all right, I've done great. There are still cars up there where you can pull into dinner and people can be like, what is that?
Totally.
Or like, man, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Like that 308's still a really fun example.
100%.
When one pulls up, it's like, man, that's just neat.
I love hearing you talk about the doors. That's something I also gravitate towards a lot. And it also is just kind of a funny contrast. I think you talk a lot about humility and really live that well, but it's also like hilariously hard to feel humble when you're closing your door, reaching up and pulling down.
Man, you make a great point, and that's when I have to lean into gratitude.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely say to myself, like, I'm trying not to curse. I can't effing believe what is going on. And
there PG-13. I think you get one F-bomb. It's fine.
I'm not. I'll save it for when it's truly impactful. But there's not a day that goes by when I'm not grateful. And I realize that humility escapes me every sunset, every second. But as long as I can keep a perspective on, where I started, why I go to work every day, keep my curiosity in life, keep my loving connections, and just be grateful. I think the day that comes where that door opens and I feel entitled to get out of it or entitled to pull it down, that's the day where I truly need to call a roadside assistance. And I don't mean to fix my car. I mean to fix myself.
Totally.
I love hearing you say that, because I think Alex deals with this too. And I do on a regular basis of just kind of waking up, rolling out of bed and going, man, what is this life that I live, that I get to open my garage and have all these cars I grew up lusting over. And now it almost feels like a chore because I haven't driven one in 2.5 weeks and I don't want the battery to die.
And I have the same thing in the traveling business where you're just away from the things you're passionate about. To me, it's less of a chore and more of a reward.
Yeah,
man.
Absolutely.
When I get to, I love driving the Honda, and that's my daily beater. That is absolutely my daily driver because it is bulletproof. It's manual. You can rev the hell out of it. It does whatever you want.
This is a CTR, right? Isn't it, John? It says Civic Type R?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I traded in, I had a beautiful Boost Blue 21, and the folks over in my area, the Honda dealer over my area was like, hey, man, you want to trade in your 21 for a 24? I said, how much am I going to owe you? He's like, dude, if you trade in your car, we're square. So I traded in. I got a brand new one. It's white. So I still have a place to move up to. He's like, man, I'll give you the white one now, and hopefully we'll get you back next year, and I'll give you a brand new Boost Blue one, because I really do love the look of that Boost Blue, but love the way it drives. But it's starting to get cool in Florida. Man, I have a beautiful 52 XK120 that is just such a fun drive, upgraded with discs and a 5-speed.
Roadster or coupe?
Man, it's a roadster. So you got to wait for the fall because it rains all the time and it's nuclear hot in the summer. So the car isn't enjoyable. But man, it's getting set for the road right now. It's getting road tested and all ready to go. So all the drips are taken care of, and all the Jaguar gremlins are chased away. But boy, it's so fun to just be out banging through the gears. And Florida roads are genuinely straight. There's not a lot of twisty bits, but it's still just fun to hear that six roar and just go through the gears and just, it's a reward. I don't get anxious because I haven't had a chance to drive it. Whenever I do shut the door and turn over that motor, man, it's a wonderful feeling.
I also find in my own experience, it's nice to have a car that's a little bit of a palate cleanser when you can get pretty desensitized driving around a lot of later model sports and supercars with big power, but to then jump in something old, it contextualizes it, and it is just nicer when you stomp on the throttle of the radical and it just rips.
Yeah, well, that's also the thing. Like we just talked about cars that are 1,000 horsepower, 650 horsepower, 750 horsepower, but next to those in the garage was a 72 Lotus Europa, or the 64 MGB, or a 49 MGA. And I know the guys at Texas Metal took my MGC and threw a flamethrowing V8 in it. But also, I used to bomb around in a Lotus 11 replica. That's just a four-cylinder with a couple Weber carburetors on it.
Yeah, those are sick. Yeah. Those are
where
so
the windshield literally comes up to below my nipples, and like you're hanging out of the car. Yeah, pretty much wearing the airplane goggles. So but it's literally like a go-kart with a license plate.
Totally. This is this is your airplane theme again, John. That is like almost like an aircraft, right? Like that's like a Spitfire.
It is. Yeah. So it's not. And again, like power isn't something. When I started to ask those questions about why, it wasn't power. Like I love that Jag, and it feels so beautiful at 45 miles an hour.
Totally.
Like it's not about how quick I can take somebody off a light. The Radical looks good standing still. And that's why like people who run those things on a track would be disgusted by the way I drive it, because I drive it safe. But I love the performance of it when I can harness it. But I also get the same joy out of, ripping through the gears on that 120.
The Jag looks pretty good standing still too, man. At least that would be my argument. I love old cars.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, I used to have a Triumph GT6 that I love to drive. Cool too. It was Robin's Egg Blue, fun car to drive, just responsive. And when you're whipping through the gears, you'll get to fourth and you'll only be going 45 miles an hour, but you can line those motors out and they sound great and it's a good feel. Yeah. You end up throwing a full disc brake kit on it and nothing else. And it still is responsive and fun to drive around in those cars.
That's back to your Spitfire, your early experience in the Spitfire, except with a six-cylinder.
I guess it was. Yeah. I guess it was. And the thing that I remember most about those cars was the difference in like a dashboard. Those British cars are like an early aircraft. Mm-hmm. And I think I love
wood and the gauges all kind of haphazardly laid out with the chrome rings.
I just love that look. So that's another thing of like, man, I dig that look too. The 100%. Dashboard on that Ultima was beautiful. The Radical is a lot more digital, but the Ultima is just a wash of gauges. And I just love that look. So I also love that aesthetic of like everything manual, all the gauges there. You can keep checking it. It's like I don't listen to the radio when I drive because I'm always listening to the motor. I'm looking at the road and looking at the gauges just to make sure, but that's part of the connection with me. You have to be present. You have to be there. That's why I dig, when I have time off, I just dig driving. And I want to drive something that if you don't pay attention, it's going to overheat or break down or something's going to happen, because I like to just be present. I like to be present when I'm on the road.
Have you ever thought about becoming a pilot, John? Are you a pilot? You have like the pilot's mentality of like sweeping the gauges, and all that stuff.
God, I like my chances when I'm on the asphalt.
I'm a ground man myself, John.
Yeah, I don't know if I like my chances at altitude. I think that's and by the way, I could not get that past the boss. I don't think she'd go for it.
Sure. Yeah. I should have thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to circle back just a little bit about your past before we get too into the present. I heard when you first came out to LA, you were living in a car for a period of time. Is that correct? Yeah. And did you do the drive from Massachusetts to LA, or did you fly out and get the car?
No. Took a flight with $500 in my pocket and a couple Army duffel bags. And then when I landed, I knew I needed transportation. So my first piece of transportation in California was a 1993 Honda CBR 900RR.
Oh yes, white with the red and purple graphics.
It was it wasn't stock color. It was painted all yellow, but the bike was absolutely gorgeous and it treated me well. And I drove it like 21-year-old in California, which is absolutely foolish.
Well, I was a 21-year-old in California with a motorcycle, so I very much know that.
Yeah, but the day I got my contract from WWE, my brother was living with me in California at the time, and I threw him the keys. I said, "It's yours." And I still owed on the bike, but I was like, "Man, I can't do this anymore."
Did you have any harrowing moments on it, or was it pretty safe for the most part?
I look back, and it's just decisions that I made that were probably me thinking I was invincible and going too fast when I shouldn't have, lane splitting when I shouldn't have, like just driving like a young kid who's, the very first time I got on a bike, I dumped it. And
Whoa.
I've had a few spills since.
Was the CBR your first bike?
No, the CBR, the Honda 750 I'm tradition of Honda bikes. Honda 750 Nighthawk was my first one.
I see. I mean, 750 is still a big bike to start out on.
It was very heavy, and I took it out of the driveway and dumped it. And thank God I was going 15 miles an hour because I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, oh yeah, I got this. And just like riding a regular bike, the first time you ride, you fall. So
yeah, I got this as a lot of motorcycles' last words, actually.
Yeah. It's yes.
Right so, until you don't.
Yep. That was the end of my riding days, and I matriculated to a 1991 Lincoln Continental, which for about a month was my address as well, was my mailbox.
I see. And how were the ergonomics of living out of that thing?
Dude, it was awesome. And honestly, no, I'm serious. I say this because it was my choice. Like a lot of people that go through struggles like that have no other option, and it was a choice. My dad gave me a full excuse to come on home. I got a roof over my head. I can reshuffle the deck. I can restart. I wanted to bet on myself, and to do so meant, a couple uncomfortable sleeps. But I had it all planned out. I was like, I work at Gold's. I'll use the locker room. I'll shower. I work there. I work out there. I only go in my little area of like the fast food place down the street. I know where I can get food, and I have friends around here, so I don't need to travel much. And I'll just park in the gym. So the hours that the gym were the least busy, I think Gold's closed from midnight to 4, is when I was sleeping in the back of my car.
Were there other people trying to live the dream out there in the parking lot and vans man. And stuff out there with you?
Yes, absolutely. And if you go there, there's still probably some people trying to do that, and I'm very fortunate that it was a situation where I could, because if I couldn't hang on, and it was, like I said, it was only for about a month. And then I moved into a garage. That was great. If I hadn't had that month, I don't know what the trajectory of my life would have been. So I'm very grateful, certainly, to the folks at 360 Hampton Drive over in that building in Gold's Venice for kind of. I'd like to think that I was being slick and them not knowing, but of course they knew, and I'm very grateful for them, throwing me a lifeline when I needed it.
Well, then the next chapter comes, and you start having some success in your career, right? Few years on, what was the first nice car you bought yourself when you got that big check?
So I'm trying to think. I think it was Eddie Guerrero's 1963 Chevy Impala SS that had a 3-pump hydraulic setup in it.
And were you still in you must have still been in California at the time with that car.
No.
Really?
I moved back to Massachusetts. It's like the minor league pay in the WWE when I was starting was minor league pay. And then finally, when I got on television, I moved back in to the house I grew up in. I even slept in the same bed. I think at one point I literally was WWE champion, sleeping in the twin bed I had slept in as like
hell yes. There you go.
So I could save money, but in saving, I also made some irresponsible purchases. That was a fun one to get because it's the first time I'd seen a car with hydraulics in person.
And hitting switches was such a West Coast phenomenon. Then you brought it back to Mass.
It was, but the car was used in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I brought it back and kind of fixed it up, and it made sure it was in good hands when it hit the new owner. And then shortly thereafter, I was going to try and say the timeline. That's when I purchased the infamous kit.
Oh, the Lamborghini, which I was actually shocked to see because it's been such a part of your life. And you're already going to sell it. That's right. Well,
so this is 6 degrees of separation here. I think it's coming up with you guys really soon.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, it's a Lamborghini Diablo replica with a BMW V12 in it. It's a totally bespoke chassis, right?
Yeah. So originally the car was a North American exotic replica cars build out of Saskatoon. The company gained some reputation, and I should have known better, but that's okay. Life is a learning process, and it brought me through many bad mechanics and made me appreciate great mechanics. So I'm very grateful for that. I finally found an absolute genius who could write the car and who also has a great aesthetic eye and could make the car beautiful, and it absolutely is. Folks on Bring a Trailer will be able to purchase my worst financial decision ever. I think I'm not afraid of talking about my losses. I think over the course of 22 years, I may have $500,000 in that car.
Jeez. Is it a runner and a driver now? And if so, is it pretty good? It
absolutely goes like hell.
No kidding.
A great drive. Yes. It was delivered. I drove it for 30 miles, and then an opportunity came up to get something really unique and eclectic. And again, my partner in life was like, hey, I wouldn't feel comfortable if something happened to us while we were in this car. So that has a lot of weight to me. There's an XJ13 that I absolutely am obsessed with.
Holy crap.
That I have to part ways. It's also coming up with you guys. So I in one fell swoop, the Ultima Evo, the XJ13, and the Diablo replica failed the relationship test for me. So they'll all be on to new homes, and I'm really excited about that because they're such dope cars. And when the XJ13 actually ran on your site before, it was from Predator Performance, and it's a previously listed car. It's coming back up, so I got it, and it was in good shape, but I wanted to make it a driver, so I redid the whole interior, put a backup camera in it, put bronze rims on it, like really upholstered.
It's British racing green, right?
It is, and to me, that's the one thing that needs the most attention because I didn't touch the paint, but I didn't want to respray it because the body is fiberglass and aluminum, and I didn't know if I was going to get into something that was beyond my scope. But I had mechanically the car is sound. For a while when I got it, it was running off a 6 of 12 cylinders, and it still sounded great, but it didn't really drive great. So that's all right. It needed some fuel system work. I had all the fuel lines replaced. I had the whole engine and transmission gone through. Gated shifter on the thing. It is right-hand drive. It is a gnarly, awesome ride.
Yours is the one by Predator, John? Is that what you said? Man, this thing is crazy, and it's a coupe too. Usually, I thought they had open cockpits. Yeah. Okay.
The guy actually made a removable top that goes with it, but when you see the listing then, and when you see the car now, you'll be able to see the differences. The car is so beautiful. I did the interior in like a biscuit tan with black piping and cross stitch. Like there's piping on the dash. It looks really professional. It was done really to spec. Like the underneath of the roof panels, cross stitch. The trunk is upholstered. Like it really came out great. Like I said, I loved that car, but I didn't really fit in it. That's why I didn't put the roof panel on, and because it's right-hand drive, that's another peculiar thing. My wife didn't like riding in a rocket ship
totally on
the wrong side of the road. So
understandably, tough to make it pass on a one-lane road.
But the kit also, man, that thing smokes. That is such a clean car. And what I enjoy about replicas, I always say buy a kit, get a kit, but there are also some fantastic replica builders out there like Suffolk Sports and Austin Meyer. There are really some guys who did great work. When the price of the cars gets unattainable, a replica is a great way to enjoy something. And as long as it's like, you kind of get the same feel. That BMW V12 is a monster. It's fun to drive. And those old Lambos are really kind of dangerous and they'll fight you. So it still has that appeal of like, it'll fight you. And it's a fun drive, man. And as far as maintenance is concerned, it's going to be an easy one to maintain, available parts. Just don't get in an accident with it because all the body panels are going to cost you. And but it really is a fun running and driving car.
Well, you're totally right. Even if you have the means, there's some numbers that just take the fun out of things, I think, and it can make it harder to enjoy an object.
Yeah, so, and man, you get like Cameron's dad from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Just rub it with a diaper.
Yeah, they're art. They're beautiful art.
Which was also another great replica.
Oh, that's right. Speaking of replicas.
It was.
Yep, that's right.
Yes, it was.
Well, I did want to circle back to you. I know you're not afraid to talk about your losses. I wondered if you have a different approach or different headspace to your automotive and hobby losses compared to other things you talk about, like losses or mistakes in your life.
So, not really, because I always try to get the lesson. Like, I got smoked on that kit. From a numbers standpoint, I got absolutely like scam smoked. But it taught me so much about cars. It taught me so much about the hobby. It taught me the value of legitimate pedigree in certain situations. It taught me the value of like appreciating a replica, appreciating a good build, knowing the difference between a good build and a bad build. It led me to builders like Austin Meyer and Suffolk Sports, where I could be like, wow, this is the difference. Okay, this is great. It really taught me so much. And it also taught me persistence. I never gave up on the car. Like, that's kind of my thing. Like, I'm the guy who will get the task done. And everybody's like, man, you did it. And now the car's going to find a new home. But I did it. And I got the car to a point where when the new holder gets it for their time, they're going to be pleased with it for sure. So I guess we have a lot more failures in life than we do wins. It's like we're all mediocre baseball players. You know, we're all kind of hitting 250. Whether we want
mediocre is what I'm aspiring to.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to get to mediocre.
But we don't often talk about our setbacks and losses, and we can't learn from them if we don't talk about them. So I often try to just embrace what went wrong, figure out how I can right the ship, and what did I learn. And that hasn't steered me wrong. I've been able to get a nugget from every setback in life that has helped me onward.
Yeah, I love that about you. And I just love that you could be finishing the Undertaker or the STFU in the ring, and then on the drive home be thinking about how you could be a better partner for your wife. Like, it's just such an incredible contrast to personalities that I appreciate so much about you.
You are not wrong, but if you're keeping score against me and the Undertaker, I don't think your vision of what happened is actual what the scorekeepers have. I think I'm batting 0 against the Phenom, so that's okay. That's all right.
John,
I appreciate your perspective. It makes me look better than I am. So.
It strikes me as you're talking about all these cars and these lessons you've learned. One kind of common theme throughout everything that you've talked about automotive so far is you really have an appreciation for engineering, clever engineering, and engineering on display. And I think a lot of like, not even just kit cars, but cars where like somebody who's passionate, who has like put this thing together, and it's often a business venture when somebody's doing a replica or one of these track builds for the street. So it's often a passion project, and they often really put the engineering on display. It's something I love. I was going to compare you to Steve McQueen earlier, who also loved showing his cars to other people. Another celebrity who really, I think, ignited a lot of automotive passion in their fans. And he also drove kind of interesting, also old British sports cars that had engineering on display. And that seems like a theme for you. You really like cars that show off what's going on with them, what's underneath the skin.
I think that's a fair point. And I think a lot of that is the curb appeal aspect of it. And this is where I love the hobby. Like, you don't have to spend incredible amounts of money to pull up to a Cars and Coffee and have other gearheads be like, man, I can't believe you have that. I mean, some of those old MGs, you can find them in drivable shape for under 20K, sometimes under 15K. And there's pockets of value everywhere in the hobby. And that's what I love about it. Like, you don't necessarily need the most resources to ignite conversation and intrigue. And I love that. And that's why I love going to Cars and Coffee. And that's why I love events. And that's why I love like those CNBC nights when you see everybody brings out their ride. Like I love that, because you see the culture, and you don't have to drive a car that just cost a lot to drive something cool, or to curate something cool. You know, there's beauty in all of it, and there's beauty in all depths. I mean, the 4x4 scene, the import scene, the exotic scene, the American muscle scene, the nostalgic scene. I mean, I'd talk to somebody about a Delahaye or a Duesenberg as much as I would talk to him about an MG, as much as I talk to him about a Ferrari or a 4x4 Blazer or a Bronco. Like, that's what, like a GNX or a Judge or a Superbird, like all that stuff is so cool. And I always think like, people are going to get tired of it, but they don't. Young people are also into cars. And whenever I'll bring something old and eclectic to dinner, the people that swarm it the most are the young kids. So like, I love the fact that it isn't, I know you said I'm bringing down the median age of the MG club membership, but man,
it's important.
people do like seeing cool cars, and people do like seeing cool vehicles. They may not go out and buy an MG, but like I said, that might be the spark to be like, how do I want to be involved in this culture and hobby? And that's what I love about it. It's like I said, it's the same thing about wrestling. If you take a cross section of the WWE bleachers, you're going to see everybody. You're going to see every gender, every race, just there to go nuts and have fun. You know, car culture is the same way. It's a mixed bag of people who represent themselves. It's like fashion. It's like what we wear is an expression of us. And I'm a big believer in what we drive is also an expression of us.
There's that great line in Fight Club, you're not the car that you drive, but I 100% ascribe to the theory a car is something that you wear. So
it's a form of expression. It really is. And it could be like, this car is simply just transportation to get me from A to B. You could be driving like a white box that says car on the side. But what I gather from that is you're probably frugal, you're probably resourceful, you probably don't put a lot of resources into this. Like you can still tell a little bit about someone's personality from even the most basic form of transportation, because there's still thought behind it. You know,
that level of thought, is there anything you currently own or have owned in the past that you feel is a good representation of yourself or that you're particularly sentimental about?
The car I can never get rid of, and I would say my Civic, but I've traded it for the 24 and I'm very happy with it, and I'll trade it for the newer model when it comes out, is the first car I was ever able to buy with my own money. And that was a 89 Jeep Wrangler. A friend of mine gave me the down payment for the bike and just said, if you make the payments, you're good. I gave my brother the bike, and my dad, who has always been a supporter of the car hobby and got me my first car when I was 14, gave me $500 to put a down payment on the Lincoln. And then I got rid of the Lincoln. I donated it because it was on its last legs, and I had a little bit of money saved up, and went to Seaside Motors 2, the second installment of Seaside Motors in Santa Monica, California, and purchased an 89 Jeep Wrangler with 74,000 miles on it. And that car has been with me ever since. And it's the first car I bought with 100% my own money.
And is that the car you have the most amount of miles on out of all the cars that you have, personal miles?
The odometer is 180 right now. And so I put about 100,000 on it. And it's been with me from California to Louisville, Kentucky, from Louisville to Massachusetts, from Massachusetts to Florida, and now it lives a very good retiree life in Florida. It has no top. It's rhino lined, the drain plug, like it's quarter doors. So, I mean, it only comes out on the nice days, and I even don't mind if it gets rained on. The car it's been through the Jeep dealership to where the engine looks like it came out of the factory, like the day it was born. But I still have all the patina and wear on it. There's still some rust spots on it. So it's kind of a sleeper in that regard. It's got 33 tires on it, like a 3.5 to 4 inch lift. It looks kind of rugged, but it's still like an 89 4-cylinder. So it's like a dumpy Jeep. It's like the worst expression of what Jeep could offer you. But I can never get another first car, so I can never sell it.
Man, I tried to hang on to my first car as long as I could, and I kept it for a little longer than a decade, but space just didn't work out. So yeah.
I sold my first car on VAT, and I regret it still.
Oh man,
I know.
Like I can get another 89 Wrangler. I just can't get the first one.
Well, there is
I've ever
something
had.
Totally different between a 89 Wrangler and your 89 Wrangler, and that's how I feel about Honda Preludes now.
It also it started the journey, and man, what a journey it's been. And I've been able to sit in the seat of some pretty impressive stuff. And that one's always there. You know, we talk about humility and gratitude, and that is a fine mixture of both.
Totally.
So I'm very grateful to still have it.
Can I sneak one last one in for John? I know he's got to go here in a minute. My dad, by the way, still has his first car. He's just turned 85 the other day, and he had a 37 Willys Coupe that he got when he was 16. He still has it.
Man,
so you can aspire to that, John. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. I just want to sneak one last one in here, because I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about charitable giving. I know you're like a kind of a paragon of philanthropy, and We love that here too. We do lots of charity auctions on BAT, and we have a big community that's going to love hearing from you, John, and that's also very passionate about good causes. And so I just wanted to give you the mic for a minute to talk about anything that's on your plate right now, anything you think deserves just kind of recognition and a cause that you think our community would be interested in hearing about.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words, and thanks for the opportunity to kind of plug whatever I think is important to my life. Instead of trying to lead someone to an area of philanthropy that sings to my heart, I think you can find that stuff online. I guess a message I would send to anybody out there listening is there's a bunch of causes out there. Ask yourself what a good cause is. There's a bunch of great causes out there. The world ain't perfect. When I was talking about that low batting average, we got a lot of problems out there. And there's a lot of people that need a lot of help. And you can't do everything for everyone all at once. That is impossible. So when you begin to narrow down your field of how can I be most effective, how can I make the most impact, I think those are important questions to ask yourself. What is a good cause? And where can I fit into this equation? It's also much more than just resource. And resource makes the world go round. So resource is not a bad thing, but you can also give your effort, your time. There's so many other ways to be part of something. But I would urge folks who are considering or maybe trying to open their scope of philanthropy or asking themselves if they can do more. If it's a good cause to you, if it's something you're passionate about, here we've spent an hour talking about cars because I'm passionate about it. When you get caught up in passion, the time melts away. Yeah. So when you ask yourself what a good cause is, if you can come up with something that you can think you're talking for 5 minutes and it's been an hour, the work will be good and the yield will be good.
Sage words.
Yeah, amazingly said. I always appreciate so much that you approach everything with how to think or how should one think about this rather than just saying what one should think about this. I think that's the mark of a brilliant person and a true philosopher. So thanks again for sharing all that with us, John. I did have just one back to shallow and superficial questions to close us out.
That's the right.
If you were to take your, let's call it your last drive, what car would you want it to be in? What destination or road? And who would you want, if anyone, as your co-driver?
Oh man, if we're talking last drive, the co-driver is the easiest one. I got to go with my wife because she's on most of my drives. One car
can be unsafe because it's your last drive.
No, yeah, that is a really tough question. While I think, how about you guys? How would you answer the same question?
Oh man,
see, there's a stall right there. Yeah. You have a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, now I want to optimize for time because you're my co-driver, so it's got to be coast to coast, and we're going to be in the one car I say I will never sell, and that's my 2000 Acura NSX.
Okay, that's a great pick. And you?
Yeah, I would actually say the same thing. Of all the cars I've owned, I also have an NSX, and it's an early one, a fixed roof car. It's a 91, and I love nothing more than being out on the open roads in the American West on that car. So just a kind of big, long road pointed towards the horizon in that car, running through the gears. They have real turtle gears. I don't know if you've ever driven an early NSX, John, but they're fantastic. Any of those cars. So that would be my final drive.
You could have convinced me to hunt for my next Honda.
There you go.
I'm trying to think if I would probably do San Diego to Vancouver on the PCH. So that's the road. And I know my co-pilot, gosh, it is tough to pick one, boys. It is really tough to pick one. I would want something that you can continue to shift the whole way through. As arduous as it would be, I think it would just be equally rewarding when those moments are right. Gosh, it's really tough to narrow it down because so many of those, I'm trying to narrow down their time. So many of those like late 50s, mid to late 60s European brands check those boxes. I would fall in that window. I think any of those offerings, whether it be like a 400 2x2 or a 250 GT California or a DB4 or a DB5, an E-Type, but then again like an MGB, it would be that area of the world, that time period, like 1955-ish to 1968, 69-ish. and it would be the PCH with my wife from San Diego to Vancouver.
Oh, beautiful. I hope the two of you get to take that drive, and I very much hope it's not your last one.
Yeah. Oh God, I think she would get car sick on that one. I don't know if she could make it, especially with the way I'd wind it out and have fun shifting. We'd probably do like 25 miles a day, but that honestly,
even better,
would be beautiful because we'd be able to spend a lot of time together. So.
Well, thank you again for your time. Open invite, obviously, to you and her and the both of you, if and when you ever want to just chat cars for another hour. And yeah, best of luck with the Lamborghini replica. Looking forward to getting it live.
Oh, no, thanks. And honestly, I always love seeing it. By the way, those folks over at Naples have put a ton of my cars through your site. So like, I always love seeing the comments, and very rarely do I let them say that it's mine, because I hold a car that I hold on to and pass on to, it's take from an owner and pass to a new owner. I always try to hold them to high standard, and I don't ever want it to sway. But this was a unique situation because I spoke about the Lamborghini kit on another podcast. They had 3 of my cars in one sitting, and they're like, "Hey man, can we say this about them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're all unique, and I want to be able to maximize attention on it." So it's great to see the comments on cars that I know I've curated, sat in, and mechanically maintained. I really like seeing what the forum has to say. So I'm never a poster, but I'm always a watcher, and it's usually my first order of business of the day. So thank you guys for waking me up with automotive excitement. You honestly, you turn the key to start my day. So thank you guys for doing what you do.
Cool. Thank you so much for saying that, John.
Hugely appreciate it, John. Hugely appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for listening. As always, feedback, questions, concerns. If you need John's personal contact information, just reach out to podcast@bringatrailer.com. We'll forward that your way. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll catch you next time.